Hey guys, just want to let you all know we're going to wait just a few minutes to let other people come in. So probably about 3 more minutes or less, and we'll get started. Thanks for coming on to the call. I'm going to tell you, I will talk your head off for too long. So I have my boyfriend Derek at my side to keep me on track, my notes, and a timer so that I don't take all of your evening. So if hopefully some of you know me, but if you don't, my name's Autumn Cleveland. I'm a pro figure athlete. I'm also a stage expediter, and I've worked in stage productions for, I want to say like something like 7 or 8 years. And I've test judged a few shows. So the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm delivering this information from all angles, not just from my own personal stage experience over 20 years, but also to kind of help put you at ease as to how these things are perceived if they happen. My goal with this specific stage fears call is to address the fact that these things are a realistic possibility, but if you prepare for them, you're going to minimize your chances of it happening to you or avoid it completely, hopefully. But if it does happen to you, at least you have a plan somewhat. So I want everybody to have an awesome stage experience. So we're just going to talk about the stuff that freaks you out the most to get over that completely. So I am going to I got a lot of really good feedback, questions to address. There are some things that I want to bring up personally, but I want to make sure that I get through these questions in an organized manner. And hopefully they'll hit on everything that you guys have as a concern point. So what's the worst that can happen on show day is what we want to definitely address. The best thing that I can tell you about this is that everyone wants to see you succeed, even the judges. So if something really bad happens, your care is in their best interest, as well as the stage expediters. So the stage expediting team are people who are there to serve you on show day. It's not your job to run the show. Your job is to deliver your physique and stay focused. It's the stage expediter's job to get you where you need to be, show you where to go on stage, give you instructions, give you directions, and help you and assist you. It's the judge's job to give the commands, but the judges are also very observant, and they can see things that are going on stage. So the reason I'm bringing this up, because to me, the absolute worst thing that can happen on show day is that you get hurt or you are in health distress. And there is a limit of what I can say on some of these things, but if a judge sees that you are in distress, they're going to help you. They're not going to keep the show running and act like you don't matter or don't exist. The stage expediters are probably going to catch it before they do, though. So I'm bringing that up because in my years of experience, I've seen a lot of things happen. I've seen shoes break. I've seen people just fall down for various reasons, like dizziness or cramps. I've seen mental distress where people get overwhelmed and kind of work themselves into a panic attack. So what I want you to understand is that your safety comes first, health comes first. And if you don't feel like you can perform, or you're losing that, you're losing your I don't want to say your focus, but like your health composure, and you can't compete, yeah, there's a line where you're going to be disqualified, but it's for you, it's for your best outcome, because we don't want people going to the hospital on show day. So that's why that rule exists in place, that like you have to be, the safety comes first. There's always an EMT backstage. So if you ever feel like you're about to pass out, or you do pass out, or you feel panicky, the first thing you should do is grab someone. And it's no problem to turn around and say, hey, I need to step off the stage for a second, or I got too hot, or, you know, they can pull you off to the side of the diagonals, or bring you off stage, like if it's for a presentation, for a few minutes, and let you regain your composure. If it's a comparison, they can decide if they're going to pull you on or off. But my point is, you're not alone once you're up there. The judges are there to help you. There are expediters at your side in whatever you need, whether it's water, just a few minutes out of the stimulus, or whatever. I have seen people pass out on stage, and unfortunately they're done for the day. But the EMT was there readily to help them and assist them. So it's just about making wise decisions and erring on the side of caution. And so I know this is the part when I would be delicate with how I talk about this, because I'm a prep coach and I don't want to overstep what other prep coaches have their clients do. The best way I could say it is, cutting things out is it's a lot more risky that you're going to have adverse effects, specifically things like water or your electrolyte balance. So if your protocols require you to cut water and sodium for lengths of time before the show, I'm not going to say that you shouldn't do that. Just know that the risk of cramping would be higher. The risk of dizziness would be higher. So just be careful, discuss with your coach, make sure that your body is supplied with what it needs in order to perform. Also, if you're someone who's sensitive to stimulants, don't chug a bunch of pre-workout before you go on stage, because you're going to get really worked up. So just be aware of your own body sensitivities, use caution. That's about all I can comment on that piece specifically. So knowing that if those are your protocols, that you might be a little bit more at risk, it's actually more important for you to practice your posing under those circumstances. So if your feet cramp or your calves cramp regularly, you need to be practicing your posing enough to know like how far you can push that pose or that position before the cramp starts. Something that could help you is like stretching. So if you need to stretch out like the arches of your feet, or stretch out your ankles or your calves, that might lessen the likelihood of cramping. But ultimately it's going to come down to your hydration. So that's all I have for physical distress. Mental distress though, that what I mean by that is like that panic attack sort of feeling, or where you start to get like hyperventilating, or you just get overwhelmed with like the bright lights, or you know what's going on. So things that will help you is primarily focusing on your breathing. Like if you can take long, slow, deep, controlled breaths, that's good for your nervous system all around. So my advice is to breathe slowly in through your nose, and you can fake smile as you exhale slowly through your teeth. So that is more of kind of a calming distraction than anything else. It reminds you to breathe and to chill. Nobody ever died from posing, but it feels like all of a sudden you're in a panic because you're like, man, this is a lot, especially if it's your first show. So definitely remember to breathe. And if just take a big breath of air, just really slow and long. And I promise that'll help alleviate some of that stimulus for you. Things like, oh, here's a weird trick. If you press your tongue into the roof of your mouth or behind your teeth, that can also sort of calm you down because it's purely a distraction. So like in some other cases, not on stage, like chewing gum sort of helps people relax. You can't chew gum on stage. It's actually a rule. You have to spit your gum out. So what you can do is like press your tongue up into the roof of your mouth just to pull your brain away from the overstimulus. things like listening for your friends and your family who are cheering for you or that are yelling awesome things for you, and envisioning your success. Like if you're up there and you're like, man, I look awesome, I'm kicking ass. Like you're gonna have a way better mindset than if you were like worry all of a sudden picking yourself apart or getting overwhelmed. So talk to yourself in a positive way when you're on stage, and that's what you're going to exude. Staying tuned in with your body is very important. So don't get caught up in watching the show. Like if some other person is doing presentation and you're on the side of the stage, stay tuned in with your pose and don't let yourself start watching them, because now you're going to lose touch with your own body. Things with focal points. A lot of people ask where to look at the judging panel. I like to look at their face and their eyeballs because I read their signals just like they read mine. For some people, that's intimidating. So you can look at their hairlines, and that will at least make it look like you're looking at them without the intimidation factor. Or just find some sort of inanimate object in the room or a focal point. So you could look at like the back corners of the room or like a chair in the far back audience, and that'll give you something to focus on, especially when you're turning. So if you're going to turn, look your eye at like the curtain or the floor if you need to. Don't look directly into a light, but finding those points of focus will help you keep your balance better. So getting into performance accidents. Again, the judges want to help you succeed. They want you to have a good experience. And the things I'm about to mention are, these are things that are probably going to hurt your pride more than your outcome. So while I wish it would never happen to anyone, it happens a lot. And some of them are very minuscule, but they feel like big deals. Some of them are really big deals. So what I mean by that is, if these happen, there's still room to salvage your performance and still win. I've seen it happen. Tripping is a minor version of this, but like it's not uncommon to trip on a stage. I've done it several times. And most of the time it's because there's different stage surfaces. Like some are very slick, like a gymnasium floor. Some are kind of like a drywall feel, like with some texture. Some are like carpeted. So it's likely to trip. But if you have a major trip and it's a stumble, don't think about it. Don't worry about it. People do it all the time. Now, if you trip and you fall down, like on your ass cheeks, I have still seen people get back up, get back in line, recompose themselves, and they're still back in the first call out. So that's what I mean about the extremes. Like a little trip up is very small in comparison to falling all the way down. So just make sure that you pick your feet up off of the ground when you step. Like don't let your feet drag. Lift them off of the floor with each step that you take to minimize that surface connection. And when you go to turn, try not to spin on your heels. Try to like lift your feet up and turn your feet. And that will minimize the likelihood of tripping. Practicing on various surfaces, like I just said. So if you can practice on carpet, a linoleum floor, a hardwood floor, concrete, rubber floors, you're going to have so much experience on all of those surfaces that if you run into a stage that you're unfamiliar with, you're still going to be able to perform better than if you've only practiced on one floor type surface. Make sure that you're wearing your heels often. So I hear this all the time where people say, oh, I only put my heels on to practice my posing a few times a week. You're probably going to trip, especially if you're not practicing your walking around. So it sounds stupid, but put your heels on and vacuum, or just stand in them while you do the dishes, or just wear them around the house or the gym if you're comfortable with that. Get used to the shoes so that they become a part of your body, not just something you throw on once in a while, because that's, I think, where people get that, it's that unfamiliar, and now they're really thinking about their feet. But if they just conform to your feet because you do it all the time, I promise you won't even think about it. So if you are someone who shakes a lot in your poses, some of that can be controlled and some of it can't. For some people, it's a neural thing. And what I've picked up on is like, the more you contract, like the harder you flex in your poses, that can be a lot of overload for your entire nervous system. And before you know it, you're entirely shaking. Not like nerves shaking, like, I don't know how to explain it, like an uncontrollable, like muscle contraction, too hard shaking. So if you catch yourself doing that, just relax your poses just a little bit. You can always turn them back on and activate them, but it could be that you're just flexing like way too hard. If it's nerves, I would go back to that breathing thing. So people shake all the time. If you feel like it's uncontrollable and it's a nervous thing, just reset mentally, deep breathe. But if it's a contraction thing, don't be afraid to relax or just reset your entire pose. Just come back into it. Okay, so if you fell down flat on your butt, get back up and compose yourself. The whole room is going to clap for you because you got back up. You can't just sit there, so you have to get up. But if you're injured, like if you got hurt when you fell down, signal to an expediter. They'll grab the EMT. They will help you off stage. If it's just your pride that's hurt, you can ask one of the expediters to let you like kind of step off stage for a second while the rest of the presentations go. Or like if it's not that point, if you're in call outs, sometimes the judges, if they recognize that it's bad enough, they may send the entire class off stage for a second to let you regain, make sure you're okay, and then bring it all out and start it all over again. So that stuff happens too. Okay, I got my reminder here. So this actually just happened recently to a pro, and she handled it so perfectly. She got a major cramp in her heel. She went down. She signaled, hey, I'm okay, but she couldn't get back up. She had to have help getting up. The judges paused the entire show to let this happen. So they understand if these things happen. The key is if you can't get back on stage because of the cramp or because of injury, that's it for you. They have to keep going with the show. So just know that as embarrassing as it is, it's not the end of the world. You can still get up and place well if you refocus. Wardrobe malfunctions. I've seen some things. I've seen a lot. This happens to men and women. And making sure, first of all, making sure that your suit fits on show week. If you need to have that suit tailored, do it. Do not leave any questions. If the suit's too big or a strap is questionable, the best thing to do is to alter the suit as you're changing through your last few weeks of your show. I always bring 2 suits. I know. Always bring 2 pairs of heels, except for the one time that I didn't and my shoe broke the day before the show. And I was so pissed at myself because I tell everybody in the world, 2 suits, 2 shoes. I didn't, and that's when it happened. So I won't be doing that again. Even a backup like posing suit is fine. It doesn't have to be blingy, just bring something in case your suit breaks. Having safety pins, or if you're good at sewing, a sewing kit is always a good idea. More importantly, you can make sure that your suit is glued in the correct position. So when you're backstage and they're lining you up, make sure that they have your suit glued in the correct spot. If your suit slips or it comes unglued or it breaks, the first thing you need to do is turn around and face the back curtain, cover yourself, signal to an expediter that something broke, and they're going to take you off stage. If it's a suit issue with slippage, like it was glued and now your suit's riding way too low, they're going to send your entire class off stage, and then an expediter is privately going to say to you, hey, you need to fix your suit. They'll give you a few minutes and they're going to bring the whole class back on again. So no one's going to draw attention to you, but if your suit actually breaks and you have a top malfunction, cover it up. They'll send you off. Do your best to fix it. So that to me is something that's scary. This is not even a big deal. I've done this so many times over several years. It's stupid. If you walk off stage the wrong way, it's okay. There have been times where I couldn't even find the exit and I'm just like walking around the stage hoping to find the stairs. You just smile and walk and try to look pretty until you figure it out. But people walk off stage the wrong way all the time. Okay, so these are things that would probably hurt your pride and your outcome. And this first one sucks because it happens every show. There's no salvage for it. If you are not backstage where you need to be and you're not in line and you miss your class, there is nothing you can do about it. If you don't show up, you can't compete. So that is a loss. Don't try to find out about that. Just show up where you need to be, listen to the expediters, get where you need to be so that you don't miss your class, because that is undoable and it absolutely affects your performance and your score because there isn't one. You weren't prepared for the required posing, or you screwed your poses up. This happens a lot. And it's easy to get mixed up with your poses, especially if you don't practice. You need to really understand what the poses, what the required poses are. So your comparison poses, learning them is priority number one. That's exactly why I built my posing course, so that every single division for bikini, wellness, and figure, those poses are laid out for you, like the comparison set. So for figure, quarter turns, your front, side, back, and side. Same with wellness, front, side, back, and side. Bikini, front and back. These poses can start to kind of blend together if you don't practice them intentionally, or if you don't learn them properly, and if you don't separate your learning from pose to pose, or if you try to rush learn. So learning your poses further out from the show gives you time to absorb and understand what pose should match with the command from the judges. So it's not uncommon that someone goes to quarter turn to the right and now they're in their angled pose, or they're not twisting correctly and now they're making their body look less flattering, or in bikini you don't pop your glutes back, or just those little tedious details. Making sure that you have those nailed down is very important. So if you're working with a posing coach, make sure that you have absorbed what they're teaching you. Make sure you start further out. If you're learning on your own or you need more guidance, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to kind of help direct you, but you need to make sure that those are a priority and that you can execute them exactly. If you get confused by it just happened at a show I just expedited. If you get confused or you can't hear the judge's commands, sometimes the music is so loud that you can't even really hear what the judge is saying in a microphone. That's not a fault on the competitor's end at all. That's like a productions thing, but it happens. And so usually the expediter will be able to translate better what the judge wants in the class. So for example, if the judge said face the rear, but that wasn't clear to you, an expediter would come through the line and say, okay, ladies, face the back of the curtain. You can also watch other competitors for cues. So that tends to happen, but usually the expediter will come along and help you along. The other thing is, like, if you're in a presentation and you think you're doing quarter turns or half turns and you're waiting for a judge to tell you, and you're just standing there in your pose and you haven't registered, a judge is going to cue you along and say, okay, next pose. Or if you're taking too long, they'll say, okay, thank you, bye. So they're going to help you out on misunderstandings. If you get mixed up on your presentation versus your comparison poses, there's no penalty. If you do your comparison poses as your presentation, no penalty whatsoever. It does not cost you a thing. If you do your presentation poses instead of your comparison poses when they're required, that will hurt your performance. So primarily I see that happen in wellness and figure on those side poses. So again, making sure that you know and understand your posing by preparing as far out as possible. So how I have it categorized in my posing course is the poses themselves with an example of how those are used as a comparison set. And then I have a separate section where it's just presentation examples with those poses. So that way you can take each pose and kind of categorize it and say, okay, this set belongs in comparisons and I have to master these, and this set belongs in presentation. You'll have a visual of what to expect for either scenario. That way you won't get mixed up between the two or blur those lines. If you have a, oh no, I skipped one, sorry. So let's say you walked off stage and you weren't supposed to. It's rare that competitors get lost anymore on stage the way that shows are run now, but this happens almost every show. They're going to bring the group out as a group comparison, and then they're going to bring you back off stage and place you at the bottom of the stairs. If you walk out of that line, that's all on you. Like if you just left, you're basically just leaving in the middle of the show, because they are going to put you back on stage again. So never, ever, ever leave the bottom of that staircase until your whole division is done. Ask an expediter with a clipboard and say, hey, am I good to go, before you leave anywhere? Because most of the time when people say, hey, can I go off? I say, no, you stay right here or you're going to miss your class. So if you end up off stage at any point in the middle of prejudging and you don't think that you were supposed to be taken off stage, or you're not sure if you need to go back up, don't leave. Ask an expediter first. That way you don't get disqualified. Oh, if your presentation takes too long. So there is a cap on, it's my timer. I have 5 minutes. There is a cap on amateur presentation posing, and that cap is 15 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds. So it's important that you practice your presentation and make sure that it fits inside of that time constraint. Set a timer, record a video, see how long it takes. Everyone deserves the exact same amount of time on stage that day, no more, no less. Utilize your time. But if it starts to take too long, the expediter is going to send the next person out, and it's going to cut yours off, basically. So make sure that your timing is appropriate for each pose. I give my posing clients a specific count to hold each pose, specific to their presentation layout. I don't know if I'm sure other posing coaches have a timing for that. So just ask your posing coach if you're working with one. If you're in the course or you're considering the course, there are presentation templates that make sure that you're using a good amount of poses, but not doing too many poses, so that you can keep your pace. So I have those in there, so it's kind of like a safeguard template, and that way you know it's not too extensive. So that's going to be a little hard because it's person to person, and there are different presentations that you can use. There's different variations that you can use. So whatever you do choose, just make sure that the entire presentation can be wrapped up within 15 seconds without overwhelming you or rushing. So, there's one more. Pre-existing injuries. If you have a fracture in your foot, or you pulled your hamstring, I've hurt my back deadlifting like 2 weeks before a show. This one kind of sucks because you might not be able to fix it by show day. You can ask your coach if you can take some anti-inflammatories. You can try to ice it. Still practice your posing, but find where your limits are, and don't push your limits on show day. Like, it would be nice if it would go away that morning, but sometimes it doesn't. And only you can know what you feel. And it's going to suck because people are going to go to you and say, oh, your posing was off. And you're like, yeah, I know, dumbass. Like, my back was injured or whatever. You don't have to explain that to people, but it's like, at the end of the day, you know what you dealt with and what you went through, and you just do the best you can. If your feedback comes back that your poses were off, or your pictures look not great because you actually were in pain, you just kind of need to consider that when you get your assessment and your evaluation, and don't be too hard on yourself, because what you don't want to do is think, oh, I'll just push through it, and then you pose harder on stage, and now you've injured yourself worse, and now you've fallen down and you need the EMT. So just use caution there, and just err on the side of not making matters worse by trying to push through it. Just chalk it up as, I don't want to say a loss, but make sure that you remember that when you're coming back to your feedback and your overall performance. And at the end of the day, you can only do the best that you can do. So I hope those things helped you. I hope that they took some of the fear out of it, that other people do want to see you succeed. They do want to help. There are people to help you. Just the main thing is just being prepared. Bring your extra suits, bring your extra shoes, wear your shoes as often as possible. Make sure you discuss your protocols with your coach to make sure that cramping is less of a likelihood, and definitely practice your posing as far out from the show as you can, as often as you can, so that you have mental clarity and that your body can go by feel, and you can trust your poses and get used to the commands all of those things are going to decrease the risk that this is going to happen to you. But if they do happen to you, at least you can remember this, hopefully, and be like, oh, here's something I can do to salvage my performance or regain it. So yeah, thanks for listening and for attending. If you couldn't make it live, be sure to catch the replays. Those will be sent out in your emails soon. And then right after this, posing course members, if you're on this call, we're going to turn right around and we're going to do posing course member Q&A. You can ask me anything on that. So that is for course members only, but we can talk about anything posing, aesthetics, girl stuff, skin prep, mindset stuff, whatever. The only thing I can't talk about is your physique readiness, your prep protocols if you have a coach, and diet. I can't talk about your diet. So yeah, I'll see course members here in a second. And if you have any other questions, just reach out to me at my email, atclev01@gmail.com.